Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel. On this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And the most important updates are coming from Ramstein, the air base in the western part of Germany. According to information we have at the yesterday meeting, Ramstein meeting, 8 countries approved roadmaps for defense cooperation with Ukraine until 2027. That was stated by the Pentagon. The agreement to finalize these roadmaps was made on July 13, 2024, following the NATO Summer Summit. So as you can see, according to this statement, we see that the Western countries and NATO are not going to stop supporting and supplying Ukraine, and most likely they are planning to continue war with Russia. Furthermore, we had several statements from, for example, Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte. He said before the start of a meeting of the US-led contact group on assistance to Ukraine in Germany that the alliance countries should do everything possible to ensure that Ukraine can continue its military actions. Furthermore, according to information we have, lots of statements, lots of very interesting updates we received from Germany. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius announced that Germany will additionally supply about 50 missiles for the IRIS-T air defense system. Furthermore, Germany promised to confirm that 30 tanks and 30 infantry fighting vehicles were purchased for Ukraine. Furthermore, according to information we have, this year Ukraine will receive additional artillery systems. Also, according to information we have, Germany intends to train 10,000 Ukrainian armed forces in 2025. The country's defense minister Boris Pistorius announced before the meeting of the contract group in the Ramstein format. So as you can see, the countries are planning to continue the war, but as for the United Kingdom representatives, according to information we have, Ukraine war could be over by Easter. That was stated by Foreign Secretary. Based on his sources and analysis, Secretary David Lammy suggests that it is more likely that a deal will not be done in January. He now thinks that is unlikely. Donald Trump is not in power yet. From what I have seen over the last few days, there is evidence that his understanding of the deal being done on January 21st is moving slightly. From the information coming to us, the timetable has indeed shifted towards Easter, so which means that the Russians still have 3 months, but obviously we understand that during the next 3 months everything can be changed in the special military operation in the war between Russia and Ukraine, and which means that saying that the war can be finished in 3 months means that war can be finished never. So let's wait and see what is going to be next. Now let's discuss the situation along the line of combat contact. We receive lots of updates from the Suji direction. As for the current situation in Ukraine itself, these days the weather is very bad. The weather is very bad, and it's very difficult for both sides, for the Russians and the Ukrainians, to continue or conduct any offensive operations. So basically the parties are regrouping right now along the line of combat contact, waiting for good weather, and as soon as good weather comes, the sides began offensives or counter-offensives. As for the Suji direction, according to different sources, the Russians managed to improve their positions in the direction of the settlement by the name of Orlovka. This information was provided us by neutral mappers. Furthermore, according to information we have and according to pro-Russian resources, another forest belt was captured by the Russians in the direction of the settlement of Nikolaevka. Furthermore, according to pro-Ukrainian sources, the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to establish complete control over the settlement by the name of Alexandria. So as you can see, since the beginning of the Russian offensive operation on the 6th of January, the Russians managed to improve their position significantly in the northern part. Currently, there are very heavy clashes for the territory of Mala Loknya, so let's wait and see what is going to be next. As for the settlement of Berdyan, for the previous 24 hours, we haven't received anything from this area, so we don't know for sure whether the Russians managed to restore control over the settlement or not. Very interesting details are coming from the southern part. We still haven't received anything about Makhnovka, but the most interesting updates are coming from the territory between the village of Guyeva and Kurilovka. Yesterday, several pro-Russian resources reported that Ukrainians were caught in cauldron between these two villages, and now we start receiving, as you can see, lots of updates how the Russians established complete FPV drone control over the main supply road that goes from the settlement of Guivo towards the mainland. So one artillery system was destroyed in this point, and most likely the Russians are about to begin offensive operation in the direction of Guivo. First, they will try to destroy everything that goes along these main supply roads, and then they will begin and the ground operation as well. Now let's discuss the situation in the north in Kupyansk direction. We have lots of very interesting updates, and the most important, as you can see, the map was changed, has been updated based on the different reports. The Russian sources published the video of how they were bombing and attacking the Ukrainian positions in the northern part of the village of the town of Dvorichna, in the north, to the north of the river of Nizhnya Dvorichna. And first I thought that was just regular artillery attack or attack with total flamethrower systems, but later we got some update from pro-Ukrainian sources, and the pro-Ukrainian sources Deep State reported that the Russians, as a result of fast lightning attack, managed to break through the Ukrainian defense belt in the direction of the settlement of Zorya, Zapadne. Several tree lines were captured, and the most important is that the Russians managed to cross Nizhnya Dvorichna and Verkhnya Dvorichna rivers and to establish control over some territories in the northern part of the settlement, which means that most likely during the next several days the entire village of Dvorichna would be captured by the Russians completely. The situation in this area is very critical. As for the central Kupyansk direction, we have lots of very interesting details and updates, and the most important that they are completely opposite to each other. I'll remind you, during several days we were discussing a lot about Ukrainian counterattacks from Glushkovka, the village of Glushkovka in the southern direction, and we were talking a lot that Ukrainians, according to information geolocations we had, managed to improve their positions and to restore control over some territories in this part of the central Kupyansk direction. But the Russians are saying completely different situation. The Russians today reported that as a result of offensive operation, they managed to improve their positions significantly and to take additional positions along the railways. So maybe both sides are telling, let's say, correct information, so we can say that the Russians are trying to move in the direction of Kupyansk along the railways, and the Ukrainians are trying to counterattack from Glushkovka along the railroad. So this is something like roads of attacks and counterattacks of both the Russians and the Ukrainians. So let's wait and see what is going to be next. Now let's discuss the situation about the southern Kupyansk direction or the Liman direction. According to information we have, the armed forces of Russian Federation managed to improve their positions, according to pro-Russian sources, to the northwest of the village of Makeivka, so additional tree line was captured by the Russians. Furthermore, neutral mappers confirmed Russian progress between the villages of Ivanovka and the village of Kolodezh. As for now, we haven't received even a single geolocation that can confirm this. Furthermore, we continue receiving updates that there are still presence of the armed forces of Ukraine in this part, so most likely, and we believe that reports about Russian progress between Ivanovka and Kolodezh is just wishful thinking or speculation. As for the Sivers direction, nothing special. As for the city of Chasiv Yar, during the previous 24 hours, we haven't received anything that can confirm that Ukrainians were caught in cauldrons on the territory of the industrial zone and on the territory of the forest and the micro district by the name of Novi, but I'll remind you that yesterday several sources reported that both positions were caught in cauldron by the Russians. As for now, we don't have proofs. Now let's discuss the situation in Toretsk, and according to information we have, the Russians managed to improve their position significantly. The Ukrainian sources published the video of how they were FPV droning the sabotage and reconnaissance group of the armed forces of Russian Federation much further to the north from the city of Toretsk itself. As you can see, there were several FPV drone attacks, and this video was geolocated exactly in this point. The Ukrainians were bombing the Russians in this area, which confirms Russian control over this part of the city of Toretsk, and that the Russians managed to break through the Ukrainian defense belt and to basically to leave the borders of the city of Toretsk, and currently the Russians are trying to advance in the fields and to increase the buffer zone around the city of Toretsk itself. There are still most likely positions of the armed forces of Ukraine in the settlements like Dachna, Krymskaya, and in the territory of mine, and now the Russians will be focused to take under control these territories as well. Furthermore, according to pro-Russian sources, as a result of offensive operation, the Russians managed to improve their positions in the area of Sherbenivka and to enter the village of Novospaskaya. Currently, there are very heavy clashes for this territory, as you can see. And I'll remind you that the main target and the main purpose of the Russians is to reach the villages of Kliban, Byk and Katerinovka to get positions along Kliban-Bytskaya water reservoir, which will allow the Russians to begin offensive operation in the direction of Zorya agglomeration. Now let's discuss the situation in the Pokrovsk direction. During the previous 24 hours, we got lots of very interesting updates. According to pro-Ukrainian sources, the village of Salona was captured and secured by the Russians completely. Also, the Russian sources published very interesting, probably one of the best and the coolest videos since the beginning of the special military operation. In this video, we can see how the Russian biker was moving along the main supply road between one let's say one Russian position and another. And the most important part is in this video is that during his road he met a significant number of Russian soldiers that were moving from one position to another. We can see hundreds of vehicles that were destroyed during the battle for the villages of Novopustinka, Toretsk. As you can see, hundreds of vehicles, tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, just light vehicles, motorcycles, lots of losses. Most likely all these vehicles belong not just to the Russians, but there are former Ukrainian units. They were destroyed probably during the Russian offensive. But this video shows us the losses that both sides suffer during the progress for another 100 meters. And you know that the most interesting part in this video is not the number of vehicles that were destroyed. I would like to point your attention how Russian soldiers are moving freely without being afraid of anything. And in the final part of the video, the most interesting moment, while the Russians are moving along the road, we see how the Ukrainians were bombing their positions. As you can see in the moment, let's reduce the speed for the video. You're gonna see how the Russian motorcycle was moving and there was artillery strike from the Ukrainian side, and nobody even let's say paid attention to this attack. So because doesn't matter, the Russians are moving and there are lots of Russians and obviously huge losses. Very interesting video. Let's wait and see what is going to be next. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Russians managed to improve their positions on the eastern outskirts of the settlement of Yasenevo. So the battle for this territory is very heavy. The Russians continue advancing, the Ukrainians are retreating. As for the Kurachovo direction, during the previous 24 hours, we haven't received anything. As for the Velika Novosilovka direction, we got lots of videos of how the Russians began FPV droning the Ukrainian positions on the Ukrainian side of the river of Mokrye Yali. So something tells me that the Russians began testing Ukrainian defense, and something tells me that the Russians, after very long operational pause and after long regrouping, decided to attack the positions of the armored forces of Ukraine, and this is going to be very interesting and very interesting operation. So something interesting is going to happen, I'm just trying to tell you. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, show me Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.